Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Crawley, and I'm one of the co-founders of The Good Influence, and we are a purpose-driven creative social agency. And I'm here today to talk to you more about how influencer marketing can be a growth engine for your business. I want to say a massive thank you to Clarion Retail, who, without their support today, wouldn't be possible, and who you might know also present Home and Gift, Top Drawer, the January Furniture Show, the Manchester Furniture Show, and Reveal. So lots of events in addition to this week's event. So like I said, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so delving a little bit deeper into influencer marketing and how it can help drive growth for your business. Before that, I just thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes just explaining a bit more about who we are, what we do, just so you know that we've got the grounds to be talking to you about this topic. So we are a purpose-driven creative social agency, and we specialise in influencer marketing and content creation for some of the world's most purposeful brands. And our aim really is to make the world a better place through the power of social. Our clients include the likes of Wild Deodorant, Stripe and Stare, and Vital. And hopefully you might have seen some of the content and some of the work that we do for them when scrolling through your phones, or if you follow any of those brands. If you haven't, here's just a couple of clips of some of the work that we've done, both on Instagram and TikTok. So this is an example of some influencer work that we've done, where we kind of really like to kind of be very creative, think about how you entertain the audience, how you bring creativity, and yeah, just how you make content that's super engaging and that they want to spend time watching. We also do content creation for brands, so that can be anything from kind of graphic animation through to videos. These are just some examples of some graphics that we've done for one of our clients, Stripe and Stare. So that gives you a bit of a flavour of who we are and what we do. But now on to how you can win with influencer marketing. And really, there are three things that I want to talk through today. The first is an Influencer 101. So just to give you kind of the basics and some of the like facts and terminology when it comes to influencer marketing, because it can be a bit of a like grey, murky space. Then we're going to get on to how to win with Instagram and TikTok on a budget. Thirdly, actionable next steps to drive growth. And then hopefully you'll have everything you need to get going and to actually start putting this into place for your business straight away, because the beauty of influence marketing is it doesn't necessarily take weeks and weeks of planning to go live. You can activate things quite quickly. So for everyone who's kind of watching this, who, you know, you're thinking about the golden quarter in Q4 and how you kind of drive sales ahead of that, I would really use these summer months to get ready, to test and learn, so that you've got kind of a working strategy or a formula that works for you as you kind of hit September or October time. So let's get going. So firstly, Influencer 101. And I wanted to share with you a quote from The Business of Fashion, which is, the question is no longer about whether a brand should get into influencer marketing. Rather, it's how to most effectively reach their target audience with influencer marketing. And I think for me, this kind of sums it up. You know, this space it's on the rise, it's growing rapidly. It's still, when it comes to other media channels, very much at the beginning. So it's never really too late to jump in and give it a go. And the reason why it's kind of, I guess, growing so rapidly is, you know, our lives are becoming social first, marketing is becoming social first. And as a result, we're seeing the value of influencer marketing set to grow by a whopping $5 billion to 15 billion by the end of this year. That's up from 5 billion from a couple of years ago. We're seeing almost all brands increase their marketing budgets spent on influencer marketing. And it's because it works. So when you find the right pairing with brand and influencer, the results can be really, really impressive. So 45% of micro-influencer followers tried something that was recommended by an influencer. Nearly 30% actually went on to make a purchase. And I think we are all guilty of second screening and kind of skipping TV ads these days. And what all of that means is that actually where we are consuming media and adverts is on our phone and on social, because that's where we are more engaged and more focused. So kind of mobile and social is definitely the future. And it would be amiss of me not to mention TikTok at this point. So it's a platform that some of you might be on already. Some of you might be dipping your toe into the water. Some of you might have your kids that are kind of glued to it. But it really is kind of growing at an incredible rate. It's the #1 website in the world, up 6 places in a year. It's now the #1 platform of choice for Gen Z, having overtaken Snap and Facebook and Instagram. So the Meta platforms. It reached 1 billion monthly users last September, and I imagine it's even higher than that now. And it's really starting to take a bite out of Facebook and Google. So they've both recently reported targets below expectations, and that's been attributed to brands shifting marketing spend towards TikTok. I know it's kind of a new platform, and I think a lot of people struggle to see how their brand can work on there. But I would just encourage you to try it. If anything, it's such a fun platform. You'll learn from it. So yeah, give it a go would be my kind of my advice. And we've got some advice later on in the deck in terms of how to approach doing paid advertising on there as well, because the other beauty of it is at the moment it's a very cost-effective platform. It's much cheaper than doing adverts than Facebook and Instagram. So they're definitely trying to lure people in, with a kind of lower cost of entry at the moment. So in terms of influencer marketing and kind of, I guess, getting going, if this is something that you've not yet done, or if it's something that you've tried and you want to give it another go, or actually if it's something that you're already nailing, then amazing, well done. This would be my 6-step guide to approaching it. So the first would be defining your goals. So what are you trying to achieve from this piece of marketing? Who is it that you're trying to reach? And actually, what do you want to get across to them? What are your objectives? So it's worth spending the time to kind of scribble down those few things and really think about what it is you want to achieve. Secondly, it's thinking about what type of influencer do you want to work with. And this is where size isn't always the be all and end all. I'll come on again to kind of delve deeper into this later on in the presentation. But influencers, there are thousands and thousands of influencers out there, ranging in size from thousands of followers to millions. And it's about, I would say, when you kind of put size to one side, finding the people that share the same values as your brand does, because they're the ones who you'll likely have the most success with when it comes to kind of resonating with their audiences. It's also really worth looking at engagement levels. So one thing that we do when working with clients is kind of really, filter out anyone who's got poor engagement, because again, they might have 1 million followers, but they might have nobody actually engaging with them. And so you want people that are kind of very active and are kind of fostering a community on the platform. Then I would get started with gifting. Essentially it's just really the cost of what you're giving away and your time. So it's a really cost-effective way to test and learn, to see what works, to see what doesn't, to see whose audiences really resonate with your brand. I would always set up discount codes so you can track performance. Recommend that to all of our clients. We wouldn't really recommend doing this kind of activity unless you can do that, because you need to find ways to track it so you can measure it. But it's worth noting with gifting, because it's a free gift. Typically the influencers aren't under any obligations to post, so you might not get the content that you hope for, and that's why once people have got the learnings from gifting, they typically move into paid influencer activity. And that's where you're actually, you're going into a contract with an influencer, and they are developing content for you to share on their channels, but also for you to use, that delivers on the kind of the brief that you've set. And I'll come on to the brief in a second, but the beauty of doing paid influencer activity is you've got greater control over it. You can also include in the contract options to boost content through doing paid adverts, which can be really cost effective. So yeah, that's kind of like the next step. Then obviously once you kind of reach that step, it's writing a brief. So making sure that you get what you want, and you get it right, hopefully first, maybe second time. And really that comes down to having a clear brief on paper, what you want the talent to do, what you don't want them to do. We would often recommending sharing photos in that brief. So, examples of things that have worked well, or things that you've seen other people do with brands that you like the look of, and anything else that you want them to do. Like it might be, you want this color to be kind of very present in their text, or you want the link to be this particular link. Be prescriptive as you can be to make it easy for the influencer. And at this point, you might want to secure usage rights as well, so that you can then boost the content through paid adverts. So then once you they've developed the content, they've shared it with you for approval, it then goes live. The next stage is then moving on to measurement and evaluation. And that's where you review the performance versus the targets you set. That's where things like the discount codes come in really helpfully, because you can track conversions through to the website. You can look at things like what worked well, what didn't work so well, and just really take those learnings and keep on going. So that hopefully gives you a flavour of kind of, I guess, how to get started and some of those steps to take. In terms of which type of influencer is right for you, there are 4 kind of main terminologies when it comes to influencers: nano, micro, macro, and mega. So nano influencers are usually they're 1,000 to 10,000, and they're usually on social alongside their full-time job, but they typically have a specialism in a field, or they're just really, really passionate about maybe food or parenting or fashion. They have really, really engaged audiences, and they're hyper local, so they could be really good if you want to target someone in a city, which, you know, some of you might have shops, for example, that are in a certain location. Nanos can be brilliant for that. Micros tend to be specialists in niche genres, so a doctor, dermatologist, for example, a nutritionist. They tend to have, you know, pretty good engagement, but their reach is lower, but their followers really, really connect with them, and that's where the engagement comes in. Then you move on to macros. So they're 100,000 to 1 million, and they tend to have risen to fame through social. So this might be their full-time job. It probably is, alongside something linked to it. So maybe they're a podcaster, a blogger. They will likely talk about a wide range of topics. They have really strong reach, you know, potentially up to 1 million people, but their engagement is more limited because it starts to drop off as you become a bigger influencer. You've then got mega influencers, so celebrities like David Beckham, you know, kind of that level. They have a hugely diverse follower base, so they might have people on there from kind of, you know, 15 up to 80, followers from all over the world. They typically talk about loads of different things. Engagement often lower, but very expensive. They're brilliant if you want to drive big global awareness. And so that's kind of typically what the influencer landscape looks like. It's worth saying, though, on TikTok, you've got people who are exploding over the night and kind of reaching kind of like levels of like macro numbers. On TikTok, we tend to kind of pull the numbers down. So actually, a micro on TikTok might be up to more like 500,000, because, you know, sometimes they can kind of blow up very quickly overnight. And so really they're kind of more like a nano in terms of their characteristics, but their numbers are bigger. So think about these numbers more from an Instagram perspective right now. Then in terms of what platform is right for you, so you've got Instagram, which I imagine most of you are on. It hopefully is working well for you. I imagine some of you have got frustrations with the algorithm changing often. It's a funny one, Instagram. I think a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with it. And I think as a platform, it is a little bit lost. I think it's trying to be very much like TikTok and other platforms. And it's lost a little bit of who it is, like who Instagram was when they started. So for now, they are a photo and video-led platform with a mix of ephemeral, short and long-form content. Users tend to visit for discovery and typically interact with family, friends, and kind of influencers. Followers and engagement numbers are still very reflective of performance, and there is a really big emphasis on aesthetics and feed. You know, the feed kind of looking very much on brand. And I think this is why we are starting to see a bit of a revolt against Instagram towards TikTok, because there is this sense of like Instagram is this kind of like glossy, perfect kind of false view of the world, which, you know, it all comes down to who you follow. But TikTok definitely does have a bit more of an unfiltered, unpolished kind of rawness about it, which I think a younger generation in particular really, really value. But there will always be a role for Instagram, I think, no matter what happens for now, I would say. Then moving on to YouTube. Oh, I'm missing an L off there, but yeah, YouTube is the home not of long form content, but long form content with brand integration. It's primarily a learning platform. So you get things like do-it-yourselves on there, recipes, skincare tips. It really is competing with like traditional TV for eyeballs. The focus is more on content authority with highly engaged users. And the talent on there are typically native to YouTube. And so they've spent a lot of time building their communities on there. It takes a lot of time to actually film and edit video content in a way that kind of is ready for YouTube. So typically you'll find that YouTubers are pretty expensive to work with. So then moving on to TikTok. So TikTok is all about short form video content with a focus on entertainment and discovery. The follower numbers really are kind of no guarantee of how well the content will do, but content has an opportunity to go viral. The less polished content tends to work the best. The feed is much less important. And what you're seeing on there is really a flood of engaged users with a really strong bias towards Gen Z. Although I would say you've got all ages on there, and obviously all of the older age groups are growing in importance to TikTok. And we've got brands that we work with that are definitely positioned to an older customer that are kind of smashing it on TikTok. It's not just about, are you a young brand and is that the only way that you can win? There's definitely something for everyone on there, which, you know, comes when you get to the scale that they're at now with 1 billion monthly users. And then finally, Pinterest. It's not something that you kind of hear as much of, but I think, you know, especially for kind of interiors, home, it's a really great platform for inspiration and discovery. It's really great for natural paid advertising, and there's some emerging content and creator tools that are definitely worth looking into. Typically users are visiting Pinterest for discovery and shopping. So hopefully from that, you can get a feel for like, what's the right platform for your brand or business. I would imagine it's well, who knows? I would imagine it's one of Instagram or TikTok, but it may be the others, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Things to note at this point. I think unlike other marketing channels like paid marketing, as in like kind of, you know, PPC, kind of paid ads through Facebook and Google, influencer marketing is definitely a blend of art and science, and what works for one brand might not work for another brand. It's about finding your formula that works for your business. And to do that, you have to test and learn. And that's what makes it quite fun, actually. It's kind of like getting in and just starting to do stuff and working out what works, what doesn't, accepting that not everything will work. I would always recommend starting small and then scaling. You don't have to have budgets of thousands and thousands of pounds to get going in this space. You can start with very little, and you can start quickly. So like we were saying just up front, you know, you can start having an impact on your plan now, and take learnings on board so you're ready to kind of, you know, really go for it over that Christmas period. So moving on to kind of influencer marketing on a budget. So if you know, you've done gifting, you've got some learnings from that, and you're thinking, well, where do I go next? Here are some kind of recommendations and thoughts on, you know, how to maybe kind of get the most out of that first investment into influencer marketing. And really it comes down to using the types of content that can drive the best conversions for you. And what we find is, you know, any content where you can have the direct link to your website works most effectively. And that's typically through Instagram stories, because you can have the link kind of in this little, on this little label here, or through TikTok, because they also allow you to have a link on the advert. This is an example one. So there'd be kind of like a link here that you can click. I think some people think when they're doing their first investment into influencer marketing that actually it's about trying to create some really beautiful content for your feed, with influencers, and kind of, you know, kind of building their contracts with influencers around that. I would say that the grid content and reels are great for awareness and for bringing the brand aesthetic to life, but actually they're typically quite expensive. And so to get the best bang for your buck, I would recommend doing Instagram stories, because they will cost a fraction of the price of doing a grid grid post, as will TikTok paid. It's a much cheaper version of doing influencer than doing Instagram. So yes, then size doesn't always matter. So this is an example of some work we did with Vital, a supplements brand, where we worked with influencers who had everything from 10,000 followers to over 1 million. And actually our best performing influencer from that whole campaign, in terms of the person that drove the highest number of clicks and the lowest cost per acquisition, was Jen, who has 12,000 followers. She shared a poll beforehand to really engage her audience. She talked to the camera through drawing her Instagram stories to explain the product benefits. We added a time limit onto the discount code to increase the urgency to buy. And she had the link on every single frame. So this is a really good example of how, you know, this brand was able to drive some fantastic results by working with a micro influencer. And so that's why I would always say size doesn't always matter. Jen, we picked Jen because she's got a very engaged audience, but also because she's just become a new mum, and she's at the point of her life when things like supplements are really, really important to her. So they're the kind of things that you've got to think about when thinking about which influencer is right for your brand. So then I guess thinking about the different ways that you can use the platforms in the most cost-effective way. On TikTok, what we would recommend is finding the talent initially. And, you know, you can do that by, you know, looking at other brands who might be comparable to your brand and seeing who they follow, or kind of searching. The search functionality on TikTok is really good. Searching for your brand or product, seeing who comes up, and starting to kind of build a bit of a shortlist of who's right for your brand. And then once you've kind of identified that, then obviously getting in touch with them, getting them hopefully to agree to doing the work with you. And then once they've then created the content and posted it organically on their channel, that's when you can then take that content and boost it through the TikTok ads platform. And that's where, again, we see really good cost-effective clicks and conversions, because like I was saying up front, the TikTok ads platform is much cheaper at present than Instagram and Meta and Facebook. And you know what, something like this could cost you a couple of £100 max to get a couple of content creators and get some content out there and to test it on paid. And there you go, you've already got kind of one campaign that you can start with. And that could be a really great way to test out whether TikTok's the right platform for you. Moving on to the most cost-effective way to work on Instagram. So it's similar to the content I just shared from Jen. And we recommend using Instagram stories, like I've said before, because you can have the direct links. This was something with aliplants. And you essentially kind of do like 3 story frames one day. So 3 kind of different videos here. And then what we recommend is then following up with a story frame 24 hours later. So you've kind of already seeded the content with the audience. It's already kind of on their minds, but then you're reminding them and kind of presenting the brand back to them 24 hours later, to really kind of remind them to make that purchase. So that, you know, like I say, if you're kind of starting out with a couple of £100, that's where I would go first. An Instagram stories trial, finding some talent that are right for your brand, doing the 3-1 story strategy alongside maybe testing TikTok if you think that could have potential for your brand. And then just, you know, learning from it and going from there. It doesn't need to cost thousands of pounds. You can do it kind of very effectively with literally hundreds. So that's how I would kind of approach TikTok and Instagram, with a very kind of, you know, mindful budget. Then in terms of, I guess, how to get started from here and how to start kind of going for it. Firstly, I mean, this might sound crazy, but dedicate time to it. You know, even if it's just an hour or 2 initially to focus and really think about your goals and what you want to achieve. Do some research on your phone, on your computer, to see what other brands are doing. Look at what people are doing well, what they're not doing well. You know, start to get into that mindset. Then I would start the influencer search. Now, this is much easier for agencies. We have platforms that can help with filtering out things like poor performers, but there are hacks that you can use. Something that we use called Social Peaks, which is like a little desktop browser extension that kind of pulls through engagement rates. or you can just look at things like average video views for influencers relative to their size, so that you can get a feel for, are they getting a decent number of views and have they got an engaged audience? Then test and learn. So I've said it a million times already, but whether it's gifting, trying a nano or micro influencer through paid, or playing around with platforms, just give it a go. You've got nothing to lose other than the time and the cost of that product. Then when it comes to doing the paid activity, I would negotiate. Influencers have rate cards, but like everything in life, they're up for negotiation. And especially if you're a brand with purpose and a brand that they really resonate with, then they'll want to work with you. Finally, and I think this is a really important one, make sure your socials are in good shape. Because an influencer will want to ensure that you're the right fit for them as much as they're the right fit for you, and that your socials are really, really clear as to who you are, and that you've got really great content, both static and video content, that tell your story and essentially bring your brand to life and are a live version of your website. So they would be my kind of 5 pointers to start going. Hopefully that's been a really helpful kind of bite-sized intro into influencer marketing for you. Like I said, my name's Sarah. I'm from The Good Influence. You can find us. Our website is thegoodinfluence.co.uk, or on Instagram at thegoodinfluence.agency. If you've got any questions as you've watched this, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'd be more than happy to help. And if you're interested in finding more about the work we do and how we could help your brands, then equally just drop me a line or drop us a message. But yeah, wishing you all the best and hope you've enjoyed the session. Thank you for listening. Bye.